Good morning, everyone. This story of the wealthy publican or Pharisee, rather, who gives so prodigiously and ostentatiously, and compared to the widow who gives her mite. The widow's mite has, from early childhood, has always captured my imagination. I could picture this. I could see what was going on there, and it continues to be a a gospel passage that really moves me. And what the Lord is saying, that obviously that it's not how much you give, it's whether you give from your surplus or you're giving sacrificially. And that's what's important. And also the attitude that you're giving. Are you giving to draw attention to yourself, to self-aggrandize yourself, or are you doing this for the well-being of others? There are a lot of people who have a lot of money, who are very wealthy and are very, very generous. And they give without strings attached, and they give because they want to help other people. But there are other people who are extremely wealthy, who not only have strings attached, but have a very dangerous agenda. And for example, there are people who have foundations that are trying to promote abortion and contraception as part of the money that they give to the poor. And the problem with this, and let me just go off on a little excursus, is the thesis that somehow human beings are the problem in the world today, and that what we need to do is reduce the number of people in the world, and then we'll all be happier, which is just completely false. First of all, the world's population is actually peaked and is now going down. And demographers are telling us that within the next 100 to 150 years, there's going to be a huge drop in the population because the fertility rate in Europe, in North America, Canada, many parts of Latin America, and many parts of Asia, the majority of Asia, are way below replacement level. So it's straight mathematics that the number of people are going. So people are not the problem. It's Pope St. John Paul used to say, it's not the population, it's the distribution of goods that is really the problem. But also, poor families who have a large number of children, that is their wealth. That is their joy. I have never met a family that has said to me, we wish we had fewer kids. No one has ever said that to me, and I can't imagine anyone ever saying it. So this idea of, we have to use our money for this. So that's off on a little tangent here. Let's come back to Our Lady of Mount Carmel and ask ourselves the question, how do we give? Particularly, how do we give to the church? You as Catholic bishops have recommended strongly that Catholics set aside 10% of their income, because that is the biblical figure, and give 7% to the parish and 3% for all of the other charitable donations that you wish to make, which would include CDA, the Second Collections, St. Vincent de Paul, the Aid to Women's Center, other charitable outreaches that you wish to make. And so dedicating 10% of your income. And not everyone can do that right away, but it means that in order to achieve that, you have to look at your budget and you have to say, okay, what can we remove? What can we cut back on? How can we do this? Because we want to be able to do this. We want to be able to give generously from our need and not just from our surplus, to be like the widow and give from what really is important. And we also need to give, as St. Paul says, be cheerful givers. Be cheerful givers and to give cheerfully. Many of you use envelopes when you give to the parish, and that's excellent. That's a very consistent way to give, and it demonstrates your constant commitment. Many of you give electronically, which for us is the preferred way, because then it's consistent for us as well. And so if you happen to be on vacation to Maui or someplace out of town and you couldn't make it, well, the parish still receives your donation, and that helps us with our budget. So giving electronically is for us very important. If you give in the collection basket, and that's how you prefer to give, that's fine too, but what's important is to be intentional about it. And not just to that day when the basket's coming, you look in your pocket and you see what's left over, but rather the night before. You look and you say, okay, all I have is a $100 bill. You can give that if you want, or you can go and get some change, but just to be intentional, prepare yourself for that so that you're giving in a way that is intentional and you're thinking about how I'm going to support the church. And that I think is, again, reflects what this gospel is about, how important it is to reflect our understanding that when we give generously to the church, we're saying two things. The first thing we're saying is, I understand that everything I have is a gift from God. So I want to give back to the Lord as a way of saying, thank you, Lord, for your generosity to me. There's no such thing as a self-made man. All that we have is a gift. God has opened the doors and provided all the opportunities that we have in order for us to prosper and grow. Those who have prospered, it's because God has made it possible for you. So when we give, we say, thank you, Lord, for all that you've given to me. We're also saying, I want to be a part of the mission of the church, which is the salvation of souls. And I want to contribute to that work. I want that work to go forward and to flourish because the salvation of souls is so important. Those are the two things that we say when we give generously. And we're thinking about what we're giving, and we're very intentional about that. There are different approaches to this concept of tithing. There are some communities that preach the prosperity gospel, and their theology is that if you give a lot to that particular church, you're going to become wealthy and prosperous. I find that the only ones who become wealthy are the pastors, really, of those parishes, those churches, not the people. And others would say, well, it's similar to that. They'll say, God will bless you tenfold, 10 to 1. If you give $10, God will give you $100. Again, that's kind of a Ponzi scheme that I haven't seen that work out that well either. The Catholic approach is what we see from the gospel today. That if you give from your need, God will make sure that what's left is sufficient. That's where our trust comes in, and that's what we believe. And so if we do set aside 10% of our income, what God does promise, and there are many people who will give testimony to this, the other 90% will not only be enough, but you'll be able to save from that. And it'll be sufficient, because God will bless all of your resources because you've consecrated them by tithing. It's very similar to the concept of praying every day. We have 24 hours in the day, and if we set aside 30 to 60 minutes every day to pray, God will bless the rest of the day. You see, I don't have time for that. Well, what happens is that you end up having more time if you set aside time for prayer. And we all know stories of people who have given testimony to that. And it's very similar to our finances, another limited resource that we have. And now just one final comment about the finances of the church. One of the things I like to do in my parishes, wherever I serve, is to be transparent and to give an accounting to the people of what our budget is, how we're doing in relationship to our budget. We're not quite able to do that, unfortunately, for several reasons. The financial situation at Mount Carmel is a little tangled up, and we're untangling it, and also we're not doing that great financially. We're actually kind of struggling financially. But as soon as we have accurate data, I'm going to present that. I'm going to print that in the bulletin so all of you can know where you stand. You have a right to. You are the ones who are contributing to the well-being of the parish, and so you have a right to know where we stand and what's going on in the parish, and we're going to make that information available to you. But what I ask you to do today is more spiritual, is to just bring yourself before the Lord and ask Him, are you grateful for all that God has given to you? And do you want to be a part of the mission of proclaiming that Jesus Christ alone is the way and the truth and the life?